Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're going to completely shatter pretty much everything you think you know about human origins. If you're picturing that classic, straightforward lineup of an ape slowly standing up, looking confident and progressively getting smarter, yeah, you can just go ahead and forget all of that. The real story is so much messier, way more dangerous, and honestly, incredibly fascinating. We're going back millions of years to look at the exact moments our ancestors literally hacked their own biology just to survive. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about it for a second. What actually came first in our evolutionary history? Was it our massive, highly intelligent brains that eventually allowed us to invent tools, build sprawling cities, and conquer the globe? Or was it our legs, simply getting us up off the ground and onto 2 feet? It's the ultimate evolutionary chicken or egg mystery. And the actual answer? It usually shocks people. Well, here is the massive plot twist of our own history. The body changed first. No way around it. Our massive, complex brains were actually the absolute last thing to evolve. That classic March of Progress image you've seen on t-shirts and classroom posters, it's a total myth. We didn't get smart and then purposefully decide to stand up. Actually, scratch that. It's more like we stood up out of sheer desperation, survived by the skin of our teeth for millions of years as entirely different creatures, and only then did we get smart. Section 1. What makes us human? Let's meet the early pioneers. Before there were modern humans, before there were even cavemen painting on walls or, discovering fire, there were the absolute earliest pioneers of our lineage. We're talking about hominids. In the grand family tree of primates, which includes monkeys, lemurs, and all the great apes, hominids are the specific, exclusive branch that leads directly to us. So the crucial point is that these guys are not finished humans by any stretch. They're the ultimate transitional bridge between ancient apes and modern humans. Think of them as the biological beta testers for humanity. Section 2. The African Climate Crisis. This was a literal boss-level threat. But why did this crazy, dramatic transition even start? Why leave the total comfort of being an ape in the trees? Well, about 6 to 7 million years ago, our ancient ancestors faced a brutal ultimatum. Adapt immediately or go extinct. The entire continent of Africa was undergoing this massive, dramatic transformation. The global climate was cooling down and drying out, and a harsh new reality was setting in fast. Those lush, endless, protective forests, they began to break apart and shrink, and in their place, vast, open, grassy savannas emerged. Imagine the sheer terror for a creature used to living up in the canopy. Fewer trees meant your safe zones were just vanishing. Suddenly, you're forced to cross wide-open spaces filled with terrifying, fast-moving new predators just to find basic food and water. It was an absolutely desperate biological crisis. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate fork in the road. This immense environmental pressure forced a defining split in our history. From a shared, now extinct ancestor, who by the way was neither a human nor a modern chimp, 2 totally distinct survival strategies emerged. One group basically doubled down. They retreated into the remaining deep forests to stay in the trees, and that lineage eventually leads to modern chimpanzees. But the other group, they took a massive, unprecedented risk. They stepped right out onto the open ground. And that bold, desperate group leads directly to us. Section 3. First steps to humanity. Time to unlock the ultimate cheat code. To survive this brutal new savanna, our ancestors needed a literal cheat code, walking upright. We're going to rapid fire through millions of years of prehistory here to meet the survival artists who slowly, painfully transitioned our lineage out of the trees and actually managed to pull this off. Sahelanthropus, Orrorin, and Ardipithecus. First up is Sahelanthropus chidensis, famously known from a fossil skull found in Chad that researchers nicknamed Toumai. Now, Toumai still had a very small, completely ape-like brain. But there's an incredible secret hidden in the anatomy of that fossil. The hole at the base of the skull, where the spinal cord enters, is positioned far lower down than in 4-legged apes. This suggests Toumai held its head directly upright, balanced perfectly over a vertical spine. Guys, this is the literal first step toward humanity. It's the earliest signal we have that standing up was becoming our primary survival strategy. Fast forward a million years and we find Orrorin tugenensis in Kenya. Orrorin was an absolute anatomical hacker. A femur, or thigh bone discovered from this species, clearly proves they were walking on 2 legs on the ground, carrying their weight a lot like we do today. But look at their upper body, and it shows they could still climb perfectly well. They were living this crazy dual life, combining the safety of the trees at night with dangerous ground travel by day. Then comes Ardipithecramidis, often affectionately called Ardi, found over in Ethiopia. She was the absolute ultimate transitional mix. She possessed these long arms and grasping hands, perfectly built for moving through the branches, but her feet and legs were rapidly adapting to walking flat on the ground. Ardi wasn't an ape, and she certainly wasn't a human. She was a bespoke, highly specialized adaptation to those specific, changing African forests.
Section 4. The body changed first. A seriously risky trade-off.
Now you might be thinking bipedalism was just a casual, convenient stroll. It wasn't. It was a massively risky biological trade-off that required completely re-engineering our ancestors' anatomy from the ground up. I mean, sure, it gave us incredible advantages. It freed up the hands, which meant you could finally carry food back to your family and, much later, wield tools. It gave you a vastly better view over that tall savanna grass to spot incoming predators. And it exposed less of your body to the harsh midday sun, which prevented overheating. Plus, walking on two legs is highly efficient for covering long distances. But the downsides? Huge. We completely sacrificed our top sprint speed. We became precariously top-heavy, with way less stability and a much higher risk of falling and breaking bones. But in the ruthless calculus of evolution, the ability to travel far and carry resources ultimately won out. Let's move to and see how this builds, because to actually survive those intense disadvantages, our bodies needed massive physical stat adjustments. The pelvis became shorter and wider to serve as a stable bowl for our organs while we walked. The spine developed a springy S shape to absorb the punishing shock of every single step. Legs got longer and stronger, and our feet, they fundamentally changed. The gripping big toe aligned with the rest of the toes, and a rigid arch formed to give us a powerful push-off. And the brain, like I said, still tiny. That major brain growth is a whole other story that happens millions of years later. Section 5. How we read the past. The time evidence. You might be wondering, how do researchers actually know all these incredibly precise anatomical details from millions of years ago? I promise you, we aren't just throwing darts at a board. Here's how it works. First, an organism dies, and its body gets quickly buried in sediment, which protects it from scavengers. Over vast, unimaginable amounts of time, minerals from the earth slowly seep in and replace the organic bone material, literally molecule by molecule, turning it completely to stone. That creates a fossil. Finally, scientists use radiometric dating. They measure the natural, predictable decay of radioactive elements in the volcanic ash or the rocks surrounding the fossil to get an exact timeline. That is exactly how we can hold a piece of bone and confidently state, this creature walked the earth exactly 6 million years ago. It's mind-blowing. Section 6, evolution is not a straight line. It's a chaotic journey. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this final myth we need to bust. Our journey wasn't a clean, organized relay race where one species politely handed the baton to the next, inevitably destined to become Homo sapiens. No way. Evolution is not a plan. It's just a reaction to the environment. It has no end goal. It has no master blueprint. Sahelanthropus and Ardi didn't want to become human. They simply wanted to survive another day on those dry African savannas. It was a chaotic, messy bush of trial and error, full of bizarre dead ends and completely blind branches. Every single physical change we've talked about today, the upright posture, the aligned toes, the widened pelvis, was just a desperate, magnificent reaction to the changing world around them. So I'll leave you with this. If our entire evolutionary history, our very existence as a species walking upright on two legs, was just a biological reaction to a changing climate millions of years ago, how in the world will our biology react to the world we are so rapidly changing today? What will the next evolutionary plot twist look like for humanity? Think about it.